Welcome to Responsible AI in Action. I'm your host, Charles Demoff, CMO of Gamma.ai, the leader in responsible AI systems. This is the Responsible AI in Action videocast series, where we speak with leaders in the AI industry about the latest developments, challenges, and practical solutions available today. As always, we keep the conversations sharp and focused within about 15 to 20 minutes. With me today is Martin Waxman, one of my professors of digital marketing and communications from years ago. Welcome. Among other things, Martin is an adjunct professor at the Schulich School of Business at York University in Toronto. He's also an associate director of the Future of Marketing Institute, instructor at the McMaster Syracuse Masters of Communications Management program, and he also runs Martin Waxman Communications Agency in Toronto. So welcome, Professor Waxman. Welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and great to see you. And, FMI, Future Marketing Institute, is all virtual. So that is the virtual office background, but it doesn't look too bad.
It looks pretty good. And I love the greenery, given that here in Toronto, we just got some snow the other day. So lovely. Excellent. So Martin, let's jump right in. Now, we had some conversations earlier. And so in our conversation, Martin, you mentioned the modern digital marketing includes elements like AI, the blockchain, the metaverse, and a variety of other things. Now, how do you see responsible AI shaping the new digital layer that marketers are operating within? And frankly, to piggyback on that, is there a need for responsible AI versus what we consider typical AI systems today? So the large language models, for example, do you see that need?
Absolutely. I think responsible AI needs to be baked into every single thing that we as marketers or communicators do, in the same way that I think ethics needs to be baked into everything we do, not as an add-on, but something that you think about at the beginning of every single process. Because if you don't, you may find that, midway down the road with a certain project or an application or whatever you're working on, you find unintended consequences that you hadn't considered before. And then you have to deal with either an issue or crisis. And that takes your resources away from what you want to do. Or two, you may hurt your organization's reputation. You may hurt the trust that you've developed with your audiences. And how do you get that back? That takes a long time. So I think being responsible should be something that starts at the beginning and continues at every stage. A really good friend of mine, Michael Meath, who was my ethics professor, he's based in the U.S. And he consults to CEOs about reputation and ethical issues. And one of the things he said is, in every single time we're faced with a decision, we need to think about considerations. What are the implications here? Consequences, what are potential consequences, positive and negative, and then our obligations to all our different audiences or stakeholders. And I think that's a really good framework to use when applying responsible AI or ethics to anything.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, I think, and I'm going to say this, with a sense of optimism. Fortunately, I believe that you're absolutely right that the world seems to be coming to this realization to say, hey, this is a fantastic technology we've invented. It's wonderful. It's really kind of taken the world by storm. It's on fire. It's great. Very helpful to many of us. I mean, I'm sure you use it every day. I use it prolifically all the time. I think every marketer does. But at the same time, it's really important that we start thinking about that safety element as well, and making sure that, we're not just willy-nilly kind of saying, oh yeah, we'll just connect the system. I don't care about whether, the consequences and stuff. So good perspective from your point of unintended consequences, because I don't think anybody really thought this through until now when we've got the tool that's doing stuff.
No, and that seems to be a pattern that humanity has fallen into with all types of technology over the years. We invented and then realized, ooh, there are going to be changes and problems. then we figure out
Hmm.
how to deal with them. I mean, in a way that is comforting, knowing that we've
Hmm.
been here before
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
on one level, but on the other
Yeah.
level, it means that, why do we have to repeat the same errors over and over again? Why not just say,
Yes.
you know what? Let's look at this from a slightly different perspective and add
Yeah.
a layer of responsibility onto it
Yeah. Yeah.
that begins with the individual and really how you're using the tools. Like, are you using them just to check the boxes? Okay, that's done, that's done, that's done. Then you're not really thinking about how you're
Hmm.
using them
Hmm.
and again, what some of the implications might be.
Yeah. So next question, I wanted to ask about since you're teaching at both Schulich and McMaster, how do you guide your students to balance efficiency with that ethical question when they're using AI in their marketing work, for example?
Well, I say to what I say to them, and this is somewhat humorous, but it's true, is don't bore me. Whatever,
Uh,
use AI, but do not bore
yeah.
me with your output. In other words, don't produce AI slop, which is
Right.
generic, the kind of stuff we've heard. Unfortunately, humans are good enough without AI at
Hmm.
producing lots and lots of boring slop, as we
Hmm.
both
Hmm.
know.
Yes.
And mea culpa, sorry for all the times I may have done it or did it. It wasn't intentional. And I think that's one thing we need to do. We need to be really,
Yeah.
really intentional about the way we use these systems. And one thing I do say to everyone who I talk to about AI, if I'm doing a training session or for students, is don't give up on your brain. Like, start with
Hmm.
your ideas
Hmm.
first.
Hmm.
Use AI to push you to get better, not to take stuff away from you. Don't use it as a crutch. And really, don't shy away from the blank screen. Embrace it. Walk into it if you can, or walk away from it to come up with other ideas. And then start with your brain. And,
So
because that's
let me dig
important.
into.
Yeah.
I like that. I like what you just said, and I remember you mentioned that before during one of our conversations,
Yeah.
and you said, don't give up on your brain. So okay, I get what that means. In other words, don't just sort of type in something, let the machine kind of go and give you the answer, and then take it, and then it becomes AI slop where you didn't
Yeah.
really look at it, you didn't scrutinize it, you
Right.
didn't honestly, you didn't add any value to it, which is a shame, and that's bad. I mean, that's your purpose as a marketer is to add value, make it unique, make it distinct, make it differentiate.
And
So
it's what you're being paid for.
like, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, I know you and I chatted about this as well. It was that if you make a mistake as a marketer, who's and you were using AI to generate whatever it was that you did, and it's a big boo boo that you've made out there. Your boss is probably not going to come by and say, "Oh, I'm going to be wag my finger at AI for making that mistake." No, they're going to be blaming you, and they're going to say it's
Right.
your responsibility. I mean, I asked you to do this, not I didn't ask a machine to go do this, right? So anyway, so good point there. Don't give up on your brain. Now, um, understanding what that means on that, but how do you sort of? I guess the question I'm asking is, how do you do that? Um, how do I get marketers to be creative, still be distinct and differentiate while still using this exceptional technology but still using their brain. What is the guidance that you would give to those people?
And I have to go now. Sorry. No, just kidding.
Tough question.
Yeah. I think we need to be really honest about what we're trying to do and what our goals are. And that may help us figure out where AI fits into a workflow. So if it's something creative or novel, new idea, and a new campaign or a piece of thought leadership that want you really wanted to show that you're thinking 2, 3, 5 years ahead. You have some novel ideas. I think that's where you start human first. Always start with your own ideas. And I feel like even if it's a crummy draft, even if you jot down some notes on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, pop it into ChatGPT, and then have a conversation about it rather than just saying, give me 10 ideas about so and so. Give me 3 openings for a blog post. But
Yes.
there are other tasks that are really, what's been called low attention copy,
Hmm. Hmm.
that the quality doesn't necessarily matter. So as long as everything's right. So a form where you're giving people directions to fill out a form and it's fairly simple and step by step and it's very rote. I think AI does that kind of stuff really well. So I
Yes.
think that you need to, those are just 2 examples, but you need to figure out what the balance is, where the nuance of what you're producing needs to have. I mean, some of the things we do just have to be explanatory. Do this, then do this, then do
Yeah.
this. That doesn't have to be brilliant, but it has to be
Yeah.
clear. And AI is pretty
Yeah.
good usually at being clear. Sometimes it isn't, though. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's great at just spewing out sentence after sentence
Hmm.
with adjectives
Hmm.
and jargon, and you just go, what does this mean? So
Hmm.
you always have
Beautifully
to be, yeah,
prosaic but empty content.
yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I like that concept that you bring up there about low attention copy. Now, um, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So, what's the problem with that? What's wrong with low attention copy? I mean, why shouldn't they do it? Or is it a good idea? Because again, I've talked to a number of CEOs, small companies, startups, stuff like that, and there's this a bit of a notion that kind of bothers me. It does trouble me deeply, actually, which is they're thinking, well, you know what? AI is really good at this stuff. Why don't I just, I don't need a marketer to do this work anymore. Never mind the blog post. I'll just get AI to create the blog post for me. And bingo, we'll just take it, we'll pop it into the website and away you go, for example. Now, that's, I think, a good example of low attention copy,
Well,
produced at scale,
no, high
frankly. But
attention copy that is produced as low attention copy. Because typically that
right.
blog post
Yes.
should be high attention, but it's produced in a
Yes.
low attention manner. And I
Yes.
think the challenge with that is we as marketers have to show our clients or our organizations that every piece of content we produce has a value. Does it have a high value, medium value, or a low value? If it's a high value, like a blog post, I actually think if you want me or any individual to spend time reading this, I want you to give me your best effort. I don't want something that's just
Yeah.
spewed out in 5 minutes. But
Hmm. Hmm.
again, if I'm filling out a form, as long as it's clear, it doesn't really matter. And I think you have to differentiate along those levels. So, but unless we put a value on that content, and I'm not sure how you can attach a value that makes sense to the C-suite because it has to be a monetary
Hmm.
value. You need to
Hmm.
treat
Hmm.
it as an asset. This is an
Hmm.
asset and it's worth a lot. Whereas this other asset maybe is not worth so much. Same thing with
Yeah.
images and photos, and we saw this on so many websites. Web 2.0 was littered with
Hmm.
stock photos that you would see
Hmm.
again and again and again and again.
Hmm.
And so that's the same kind of thing with AI drivel, really.
Yeah.
You want to get
Yeah.
beyond that. And AI images too, because if you look at enough of them,
Yes.
you'll notice almost like a stock photo-esque similarity
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
LinkedIn in certain articles. I see it
Yeah.
in the slides I produce because I like using
Yeah.
text image just because it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
They're not amazing, but what I produce, but they're okay.
Yeah.
And but I see very similar images in what the students produce or looking at something on LinkedIn. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of know what they were getting at with their prompt. So you need to figure out how you make whatever you produce higher quality.
And that's interesting that you kind of point that out that there's maybe the distinction or part of the value that a human brings to the table is to use proper judgment. So in other words,
Yeah.
to be able to judge to say, you know what, maybe this is a some lecture notes I'm going to be drafting. I need an image here. Is it critical? Is it really important? Is it, no, it's not really. That's fine. Let me just sort of auto generate it and away we go. And it's okay. It's enhanced it a little bit. on the other hand, maybe the content that I'm putting up on my website, where it's possibly going to be, hitting prospects and hitting some clients and stuff, that I might say, no, that's a little bit more critical. That's now affecting my brand. And I want to make sure that that looks really good and polished, and that's a little bit higher level of quality that I really have to kind of pay attention to. In which case, again, that's that human judgment coming in saying, yeah, you know what, for that, maybe we can use the machine or the AI, and wonderful, but we've got to be a little bit more attentive, or we hire a photographer and actually make some real photos. Wow, that's a novel concept these days, but
Sure is. Or a reel
but
video, something like
oh
that.
yes, yes. I imagine we're going to start seeing a tremendous amount of just video slop, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
yeah. Huh.
I think automation can be a really good thing for all of us
Yes,
because it
yes.
makes certain things easier to do.
Hmm, hmm.
But if we just get into the mindset that we want to automate absolutely everything, then we're missing out on creativity, strategy, judgment, and really the heart and
Hmm,
soul that we put into a piece of content. The other thing, though,
hmm.
is you really need subject matter expertise to know the
Yes.
difference between whether an output is good or bad. So, going back to the example of the images, I'm not a designer and I never have been. And so,
Hmm.
my slides, if I'm producing them, regardless of it's AI or not, they reach a certain level of design because that's really all
Right,
I'm capable of. I think on the
right.
writing side, that's where I think I excel. I hope I excel. I've been doing that for a long time. I pay attention to the words. I will, even if it's 4 bullet points, I'll rewrite them 10 times just to try to get it sounding like a
Hmm,
story.
hmm, hmm.
Um, so I think that's important too. So I can tell the difference between writing. I know the different, but I also know how to make something good if it's written.
Yes, yes.
Whereas if it's a visual, I know it's not as good as it could be, but I don't necessarily know how to make it better.
Right, right.
And that's why
Interesting.
our talents, because all of us are different, we all have different
Yes.
talents. I think
Yeah,
that comes into play too.
yeah. Hmm. That's some really, really good points there. I like that point about the subject matter expert. So that's excellent. So, Martin, let me bring you in for that last question. So, my last
Okay.
question here is, how do you and I think that you were the one who actually made me aware of this because I hadn't heard about this before. So, how do you interpret or explain a fear of becoming obsolete? So, FOBO.
Okay.
Now, among marketing professionals, because I think all of us, to a certain extent, have perhaps had a tinge of fear and thought, "Oh my gosh, this technology is like wildly good stuff." So, what's the mindset shift that we need to stay relevant as AI reshapes our roles?
Well, I think this is something that we've needed since the days of social media or even earlier. We have to stay curious and
Mm,
to know that what we know today is probably not enough 2 weeks from now, a month from
hmm.
now, 6 months from now. Like we have no idea of what is going to change when, and we can't even predict it
Yeah,
because the pace of change has
yeah.
been just so astronomical. I mean,
Hmm,
I
hmm,
was going back to 2019. I
hmm.
could, or 2018 really. I could see these AI tools really coming into the workforce, but I thought it would happen over 10 or 15 years. So
Hmm, hmm.
2018, 2030, something everyone would be using them. But all of a sudden, end of 20, really 3 years ago, almost to the day, because it was November
Yes,
2022 when ChatGPT was launched. It was like ding,
yes, yes.
an explosion, and all of a sudden, people were using the tools, but so were companies. No one was
Yes.
training them on it. I don't know how many
Yeah.
organizations give their employees access to Copilot because Microsoft's been doing a good job selling it,
Mhm.
but they're not
Mhm.
training
Mhm.
people on it,
Mhm.
saying, here's how to use it in a really
Yeah.
smart way. It's like, you got it, okay, go out there.
Yep.
And so that contributes to the fear of becoming obsolete because it feels like, oh, these tools do things, the kinds of things that we could do, that we use
Yeah.
tools to do, they're already doing them. how's that going to affect me? And I think just staying curious, staying very flexible, being open to adapt, and
Mhm.
knowing that you have to accept working in this very uncertain environment, which is not settling to anyone's stomach. It's not settling to mine, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is some good advice. I love that those talking points, the stay curious, flexible, and willing to adapt. I think that
Yeah,
that's probably not just for AI space, but it's probably a good advice for all time. But certainly at these times where things are changing that quickly, absolutely that is some great advice.
thank you.
I'd also like to kind of mention that, you know what, this conversation has been absolutely fantastic, really interesting. We emphasized a little bit about the value of that, the human in the loop, even in things like writing, where we are using AI effectively, but it still should be your seed ideas, whether it's in bullet point form or whatever, that you're guiding it and kind of bringing that distinction to the world, because that's our job as marketers, first of all. And I like that. So jot down those important seed points, the concepts, and yeah, stay curious. And again, the other thing that I really took away from this was that need for subject matter experts that you
Yeah,
mentioned. I think that is absolutely important, very critical. And I think actually that really does blend well between humans and the AI side. Um,
yeah.
and
And
kind of working better together.
it's so true because you know what? There's a really big difference between what's new to you and what's new to the world.
Mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
unless you're a subject matter expert, you'll see
Yes.
something, it's new to you, you'll go, this is amazing. And
Yes.
because it looks so nice, comes in a nice package, but it's not really new to the world. And we can't
Yep.
keep putting out, great that it's new to us. We learned something, but got to get beyond that.
Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes another form of slop, which is not very good.
Yeah.
So that's good. Good. Well, thank you for joining me, Professor Waxman. Thanks so much for joining me on this discussion and this journey. Martin wears many hats, like being the adjunct professor at Schulich School of Business at York University, an instructor at McMaster University, and runs Martin Waxman Communications Agency in Toronto. So if any of the listeners do have questions on a marketing realm, or how do I use AI properly in marketing, et cetera, or frankly, just marketing and communications questions, Martin is the man to speak with. So do
Thank
reach
you.
out.
Yeah. On
And
LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn.
absolutely, that's a great place to connect, in fact. So also to all of our viewers, thank you very much for joining us yet again, and see you all next time on Responsible AI in Action.